Jamie, got anything to add to that?
Not really to that point, but they, like he said, like if you are just starting out, you don't have any coaches, that is a great place to start because they already have that rapport with the students. I will go on to the next point, which is a good thing to start with as a new coach is a parent handbook. Since this is a new program, parents are going to have lots of questions. So if you can make a handbook that kind of breaks it down for them. I have an example. So if you guys ever need one, you can email me. My email is on the website and I can send you mine. It's kind of specific to my school, which is Carmel. But you can alter it to be more towards your school. But this way, the parents that you can send home with all the life skills and FAP classes to let those parents know what the program is about, what the expectations are. And then, make sure I'm staying on topic. Make sure they really understand the rules too, because I have a lot of parents every year ask a lot about that. Then also give a copy to the teachers as well, because the teachers may not know. I mean, just because they're a special education teacher does not mean they know about this program. So that way, if parents reach out to them, which is more likely they'll reach out to them than you because they're more comfortable with them, they can kind of filter some of the questions and then know how to send them on to you guys. But don't make the handbook too long. Mine's technically 2 pages front and back, so parents don't get overwhelmed.
Yes. So moving right along here, and actually, Jamie, if you could send that, I'd be interested in that handbook if I could get a glimpse of that. If you would send that out to me, I'll go ahead and talk about how to get that handbook out, how to get that word out. Sorry, not the handbook. How to get the word out to not just your special ed staff, but the entire school and community of what you're trying to do, and that you're trying to recruit partners and athletes, and you're making a team. You need to put it on your school announcements. That's the easiest thing to do. However, my high school students informed me, with this month being Disability Awareness Month, my high school partners informed me that they don't read the announcements that go out when they get them emailed, because they get them all emailed to them. They don't open them. So you got to have multiple ways. So you need to post things in high populated, high traffic area in your building. So we put things in the cafeteria, in the rotunda. I've even had kids go and they put them on the inside of stalls in the bathroom, just so that anywhere they're visible. So they just make little posters, little flyers about when our season's starting, who to talk to, if you know, who to get a hold of. If you're interested, when the call-out meeting is, all that information that you want to get out there to new people, we make it visual to them on doorways and on the walls, and just plaster posters and signs everywhere. Also, I meet with clubs and other off-season teams. So because I have access, I'm in the high school every day. A lot of academic lab time is we're allowed to once a week schedule call out meetings, and anytime I see the announcements that there's a soccer call out meeting or something, I go to that coach and ask, hey, can I have 1 minute of your call out meeting time? And they always say yes. And I go to that call out meeting and tell them, try to recruit, get people to join the unified track team or whatever unified sport we got going on right now. So that's a huge help. Talking with your AD, asking when their coaches are going to have, we have all sport coaches meetings. So whenever he has a meeting with all his head coaches, I go and try to communicate with all the head coaches. It's kind of like a one-shot deal. I get to talk to all of them, get information out to all of them at once. Having your AD put something on social media is huge. That our social media, our AD social media is probably the biggest account over an administrator or other teachers. Everybody follows the AD to get scores and updates. So if he directly puts something out there for you, that's the majority of people in your community. They're going to get that on social media. The school website, a number of parents go to the school website for random information. So that's huge if you can get your tech department to post something on your school website. I've even gone and had, we have, being a small town, we have a local radio station. He's even helped us out and put some stuff on the radio. So whatever resource you have, use it, is basically what I'm saying. Don't just use one, don't just put on the school announcements. Use every avenue of communication you can to get the word out, what you're trying to do. So you'll get that'll get to where you're recruiting, you're going to have a community base and involvement, and you'll surprisingly get some people that are really interested that you had no idea that were interested. And that goes for students and staff and community members. So really flood every avenue you have to get the word out.
All right. And on that note, what he was talking about with call out meetings, every coach, well, at least in Carmel, most school districts have a call out meeting to get students in. This is where you can also have a call out meeting. My school does it in January. Like I said before, we send out information to all the life skills and FAP classes, but you cannot send it to every kid in the school. Well, especially when you have over 5,000 students. So what we do is we have a call out meeting in January that we advertise the way that Ryan had talked about. And at that meeting, they can get the handbook, and they also get an application in Carmel because we have way too many kids. In this way, you can kind of just gather information on the students. You can get information like ways to contact them, their past history on running, their interests, all those types of things we gather through our application, which again, if you need help with an application, I could send you ours that I created a couple years ago, and then you can just adjust it however you want. But this application helps a lot, but you can do that in January. And then that way I get to them at the beginning of January. So that way by the end of January, we can kind of make a team. So that way, starting in February, I'm going to let Ryan talk about what we're going to start in February.
All right. So early on in the season, which obviously February would be just a month before the season starts, we would talk about team building and emphasis on doing things with each other and not for each other. So I use the month of February to kind of as like a training, a unified training session, not necessarily a track session. I know we call it conditioning, but it's really more conditioning of getting to know each other. And we won't talk a lot about team building activities because that'll be talked about later today, but that's just a very important role early on in the season when you have individuals that have never interacted together. So, getting to know each other is vital prior to getting to the actual specific skills of track. The running, the throwing, the jumping. The bonding needs to happen, number one. And that's where the month of February can be used. And it typically is going to be indoors, so you don't have to worry about it's close quarters. The track, if you don't do any of that and you come to the season and you start track on the track, that's a huge area. You're not able to be in every area of the track in the field. And so you're not going to be able to witness if those bonding experiences are happening from one end of the field to the other. If you do it in February where you're inside and you're able to lead those activities to ensure that it is happening, I think that's really important, and to ensure the success of the training later on out in the track, because then you can kind of cut loose and walk from the shot put area to the long jump area, knowing that the group you just left is going to continue to work hard. They know each other. You know, there's that just comfort from you as a coach to know that that relationship is already built. If you start it later out on the track, when everyone's spread out, me anyway, I would have anxiety on whether I would want to leave a particular group. I not saying anything bad would happen by no means. No, I don't think I've never worried about that, but just knowing how to include, teaching that how to include, and there's different levels, and you can use the month of February to do that indoors, in close quarters, so that everyone's able to see and witness that. The relationship building is, I tell my kids that that's number one and the track is number two. So they're aware of that. I know it's high school sports, and that's, I mean, when I say 1 and 2, they're neck and neck. We do try to compete and be competitive. It is high school sports. It's not Pee Wee sports, but I ensure to them that I want to make sure that there's a relationship and lasting relationships being built over running, getting first place in your heat. And that starts early on in the season. Are there any questions? I mean, I feel like we've just been rattling on.
We just had a question come in. It says, we are having issues getting physicals completed. How do you plan for physicals? Do you cover the cost?
So physicals, from my understanding, for this school year, the ISHA is allowing last year's physicals to be good. Well, I guess that kind of doesn't make sense to me, what I just said, because if you're a first year program, you won't have physicals. So I've ran into problems too early on. I have went all the way to the extent, my first year, I had a parent that was there that she could not get into her doctor's office. And she called me, and I could tell she was crying and saying how her daughter cannot compete this season because she can't have a physical. And I told her, no, that's not the case. And she can't compete until she has the physical. So I allowed her and said, she can't get the physical in 2 weeks, and we're 2 weeks into the season, she'll start in 2 weeks. So she calmed down and was okay with that, but she was still obviously not happy. However, I was not okay with that. After I got the phone, I called our local walk-in clinic and explained what was going on. And the nurse there just happened to have a family member that was a doctor in Fort Wayne, because she went to a local place here, and the local place declined her because it wasn't her. She couldn't get into her regular physician. The walk-in clinic would not see her because of her disability. The doctor was not comfortable signing off on her to do the sport. So I initially called the walk-in clinic. The nurse gave me her number to a family member that was a doctor in Fort Wayne. So I called this doctor, and this doctor was not happy at all after I told him the story of she was denied from the walk-in clinic. And this doctor came to our high school. I got permission from the parent, got permission from the administrator. The doctor came to the high school and with another female staff member, went to our large special ed classroom bathroom and did the physical. And that's how she competes. So I would suggest call a local doctor office, and usually I'm not saying it would be easy to do. I just got lucky and had a doctor that was willing to do it. But that's an option. It's kind of far-fetched, but that's what we did. We had a doctor come to school and do it. Maybe your school nurse knows a local doctor. Your athletic trainer might know a doctor, maybe a team doctor that's local, that you could work out to come to the high school and schedule them right after school and get them done. It's far-fetched, but it's something. We've done it. It's possible.
Also, our school district will also gather information, and it looks like Avon's does it as well. A handout that tells them where they can get physicals in the area. That way, and that's not just for unified sports, it's for all sports. They advertise like, this is when you can go in without an appointment. Here's your time, like here's the times that they're taking walk-ins for physicals. And I don't know the cost of it, but parents have found it very convenient to be able to have that list of places. So you could also talk with your school AD about if they have a list of places that they send kids. I know at the beginning of each season is when they set that block of time, like right before season starts. So fall, winter, spring, so that there's a time for them to get in. The biggest one is in fall, so just get it for the school year. For right now, since its season is starting, I know that definitely puts you in a harder situation to get those in, but they are required by not just for unified sports, for Special Olympics too. You cannot do any event without a physical. So make sure you have the physical before you let them start practices. And there's more questions coming in. One second.
And to cover the cost of it, we're far along. We have a booster club, and the booster club will pay for anything like that. But early on, when we first started, I know I made it clear that I wasn't financially going to allow someone not to participate because of financial reasons. The special ed staff is a huge resource. I let them know that so-and-so can't afford, and I think back then it was a $40 physical. Then they can't do it because they said they can't fork over the $40 at this time. So between like one other staff member and I, we both threw in $20 and made it happen. Now we only had one student that needed that. And usually we have about one student every year that needs that. But if you talk to your staff, not only special ed staff, but anybody in the building, and let them know that this is happening, even your principal, everyone's kind of on the same page, and they don't want somebody not to be able to participate because of financial reasons, and they'll somehow get the money, whether that's your principal helping you out or other staff members. But if you talk to other people, other staff members, and you don't have to tell them what student it is. You can just say, I have an athlete that can't afford it. Is anybody willing to chip in? And if you need to, you can go to multiple. There could be something put in the teacher's lounge, and I'm willing to bet that extra cash will pop up.
Also, to add, I had a secretary at a athletic office put in, you can go to a Minute Clinic to get them too. And I don't know if that possibly makes it cheaper, but like Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, you can go there and get the physical, so you don't have to go into like a doctor's office, and that should really lower the cost for you. And keep in mind, they do have to have the 10 practices before they start competing. So you need like in a meet. So make sure and that is hard to get in. I understand with weather and everything else, but they do need to have those in there in order to compete. Do we have any other questions? You can keep using the chat box. I have that pulled up, or you can unmute yourself and ask if you have any questions. I do have one more part of our presentation. It is important at that call-out meeting that you establish a way to communicate with these students, because if you have a big team, you are not going to want to be emailing each and every one of them every time. So I personally, because we have about 200 applicants, we use a Remind app. It's free, and you can add the kids can add it, and it's a way to send out messages to everyone, just like a text message. It'll come across as a text, but it's not coming from like your phone number or anything. And it's out to everyone, so it's not one-on-one communication, which definitely don't do that. But it's important to have that kind of form of communication throughout the season. And then I also I have a student one and a parent one. That way the parents, you could probably make it all in one if your team's not real big, but it only allows so many people. But that way I can get information out to everyone. Let me see if there's any more questions popping up. The app, I will put it in the chat. It's called Remind app. It's a blue app with a white cloud. Like it's blue on the outside and it has a white cloud. And that's what we use to communicate with the students. That way they can get it, because I have found, like Ryan said at the beginning, they do not check their emails like you would hope. And I don't even have the parents that check it as much. So it definitely helps to have that come across as a text. More guidance on what to do the day of the meet and how to register the kids for the events. So the day of the meet, if it's a home meet, that probably will add more anxiety because there's a lot of setup. I was very fortunate because my first couple of years I had Bruce Wolf as our assistant AD, and this is my first year without him. So I'm kind of a new coach in a sense because he's not doing everything for me. But it's important to lean on your assistant athletic directors and your athletic directors. They should know what to do in these situations. But to pre-register, other than the sectionals, you will get an email for sectionals, regionals, and states. So just make sure you're always staying on top of those on how to register and how to put the kids in. You will need 2 event times throughout the season, either 2 throws, 2 jumps, 2 running times in order to compete in sectionals. And then they'll have you submit those times and distances. But for a local meet, say you're playing another school, they should email you again asking you for your roster ahead of time. If they don't do that, that means the meet will probably be a little bit more laid back and you can just go with your roster there, and they'll just set you guys up in the moment. But most of the time, at least for us, they do it in advance and you will just send them the information. Now, if you're having a home meet, what you can do is, again, your athletic director and assistant athletic director should be helping you with this, but they should help you set up a way to send out to the other schools the event information. And that's actually a good idea for something that maybe a template we can put on our website for you guys about how to put people in lanes and get their times and everything.
So if you're the host school will want the stuff early on at 2 or 3 days before the meet. And what they'll do is they'll ask for who's running in each event and their times. So you'll send, like what I do is I send out on an Excel sheet my 100-meter dash runners, and I list them from fastest to slowest, my 400-meter, my relays, my long jump, and my shot put, and I list them from the top down. And then the host school will take that and plug it into whatever system they use to make the heats or the flights. So in your early on date, your first meet, you're going to need to have a practice meet within your school, your team, to where whoever's running the 100, you need to have times for all of them from practice for your first meet. After your first meet, you need to use that time to submit for your next meet. And then after your first 2 meets, you will always use the better of those 2 times to submit a qualifying time maybe for your 3rd meet. And then so you always need to keep track of your times and your distances for the sectional and regional, it's for the state tournament. Because like Brooke said, you got to have like Jamie said, you got to have 2 meets before the sectional. Well, if you're only having 2, that's fine. But those times and distances are very important. They need to be accurate. And they're going to be more accurate than you would use from practice. And you can't use those practice times for sectionals. They have to be signed a meet time and signed off by an official, a track official. So it's important if you're your first meet, or if you go to meets where they're not scoring or they're not timing, I hope you need to find at least 2 meets where they are scoring and timing, and so that you can have accurate times to submit for the sectional entry. Then can we record this? The meeting is being recorded, and it'll be posted on the website here. If not around end of today, it'll be early next week. So yes, the meeting is being recorded.
Ryan, they can record it as well if they'd like to.
Okay.
So like he was saying, it does have to be a meet time. If you only have one meet scheduled so far this season, talk to your AD and see if you can get more put on. Sometimes I know it's a lot, but it can fall back on you to like reach out to other schools and see if they want to have a meet. It does, and a meet doesn't have to be 5-6 schools. I mean, a lot of times during our season, it's just one other school that we have a meet with, and sometimes it's 2, but they don't need to be big meets. So if you have a local school that you can have a meet with, as long as there's an official there, that will count.
Yes, and your meets can be, especially you can be up front with the other school and say, hey, we need another meet to have an official time, and have it with one other school. It'll be really quick, because whether you do it with one other team or 6 other teams, you only get one time. So it doesn't matter. You could have another school come over, and between you and one other school, I bet less than an hour and a half, you'd be done. It would go really fast. But you do got to have 2 times, official times. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but I think it could be the same school twice.
Yes, they can. It can be the same school twice.
So if
you've already got the one, you can just schedule another meet with them.
Right.
Correct. As long as there is an official there, that's all that matters. You will have access to the recording. Yeah, I totally understand. I have a newborn in the other room and I hear him crying. So I'm just like, yeah. So yes, it will be up there so you can watch again later. Then we also had, yes, there are multiple other communication apps. You do not have to use the Remind. That was just one that I am using. And then meets times. Oh, and I will work really hard to try to, within the next week, get that up on the website, a way for you, like a layout. Luckily, I have on my computer some that my old assistant athletic director, Bruce Wolf, used for us. But a lot of schools do have a program that they use that so ask another great resource, ask your girls and boys track team what they do. Ask those coaches, because they are so helpful, especially if you don't know how to do an event too. Like if you don't know how to teach running long jump, how to throw a shot put, no one expects you to be an expert in all these. Ask these other coaches to help you out, and they can help you with that.
And the other kid, the boys and girls on the boys and girls track team will also help out too. Like there's an abundance amount of coaches out on the track, because the high school boys and girls kids want to help out as well. So you'll have more support than you think once you're actually out there.
And I cannot stress enough how important captains have been. I know when you're starting off your first year, it might be hard, but I have event captains for each event. Like it's normally a junior, senior that I know I can trust. I feel like I can trust, and I put over there because you can't be in all the places. And if you don't have enough coaches for 5 events, it would be really hard. So have the, captains to be there. And normally those captains will take it very seriously and they will learn the event very well. I've been very lucky to have recruited people that did track their freshman and sophomore year on the boys and girls track team, and then have moved over their junior and senior year to Unified. And so they know the event well, and you can put them in there. But if you don't have that, normally a junior senior will take the time to learn the event to be able to help out with that. So if you can't be in all places at once for the event, that will really help. Do we have any other questions? I'm not seeing any come up. If you find that you have a question later on, please feel free to email either one of us. Emails again are on the website, throughout the season. I would love to help you guys out as much as I can. Anyone on the board would love to help. That's the whole point of this coaches association, to have people to go to. Please do not forget to do your trainings though. My athletic director would be so proud of me right now for remembering to tell people that, because he gets on me. There are trainings online on the My ISHA website for you guys to do. And it does go over a lot of the information that we go over as well. And then you guys have to have that certification for the season as well.
Brooke, we keep us going.
Great job, guys. We will have opening ceremonies at 9 a.m. So if there is no other questions, you guys can take a break and we'll get started at 9 a.m. There was a question last year, was a great shot put video. Is there any way we can find that again? I believe that is on the YouTube channel for Champions Together Unified Track. I will look. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unified Track Clinic. We are going to begin with our opening ceremonies. And today we have Paul Neidig, Jeff Moeller, and Bobby Cox to open us off with our Unified Track Clinic. Gentlemen.
Good morning. I think Commissioner Cox, I'd love for you to roll this one out this morning, given you're the godfather with Mr. Lonzo getting this thing started.
Well, thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. And really, my job here today is to really give a commercial. But I want to thank you for participating in today's clinic. Most of you are already members of the brand new Unified Coach Association of Indiana. And if you're not, I want to encourage you to join and support the organization and participate in all the events that we will have in the future. It's easy, it's quick, and it's inexpensive. Your membership is only a $30 membership. It's good for the rest of this year and all of next year. Your membership will not expire until June 30th of 2022. It's only $30, and you can join very easily by going to our new website. That is ucain.clubexpress.com. And you can click on the Join UCA of Indiana link at the top of the page. Again, that's ucain.clubexpress.com, and click on the Join UCA of IN link at the top. I want to thank Paul and Jeff and all of you for participating today. This is the, again, another virtual meeting of many that you've participated in, but simply want to thank you for what you do for young people in our state, and particularly those students with and without intellectual disabilities, as we continue to move our initiative forward with this Coach Association and our unified sports. You are making a big, big difference in the state of Indiana and the culture we bring to education-based athletics. So thank you for what you do, and I'll turn this back over to Paul.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Cox. And again, thank you for the vision, along with Jeff Moeller and many others, to get this wonderful program started across the state. Jeff, words of wisdom today.
Thank you. I'm wondering if I can share a screen with you. I might be able to. Hopefully you can see this. I'm Jeff Moeller, the President and CEO for Special Olympics Indiana. And in the course of our history, we've started to collect some important data on the health of people with intellectual disabilities. And I hope that you can see the screen now. Your students with intellectual disabilities, let me fast forward in their lives 10, 20, 30 years. And here's what they will look like, unfortunately. Twice as likely to be obese, 2 to 4 times as likely to be less physically active as the general population, twice as likely to have cardiovascular disease and asthma, 5 times as likely to become diabetic. All reduces their life expectancy compared to you and I by 16 years. This is the data that we live with every day at Special Olympics. This is the data that our athletes, especially as they become adults, will live with the rest of their lives. And this is the data before COVID-19. Look at the factors involved. Obesity, asthma, diabetes. We know that those have a negative impact, a special negative impact with COVID if somebody were to contract COVID. So research has shown since COVID that people with intellectual disabilities are 4 times as likely to contract COVID as you or I. And if they contract it with these factors, COVID will have a greater negative impact in their lives. I'm saying all this because what you do here is not about one season. It's not about 4 seasons. It's about giving these athletes with and without intellectual disabilities an idea of what a healthy lifestyle can be like for the rest of their lives. And hopefully, while we at Special Olympics are dealing with the reactive need of trying to get those who are overweight back within a proper BMI, the best way to keep them healthy is to start when they're younger. You know that, and I know that. We all know that. So keep up the great work. You're providing those opportunities for these athletes to stay healthy from the very beginning and not have to make course corrections later in life. Track and field. I love the sport of track and field. And if you know me, or if you get to know me in person, you realize that I'm only 5'7". There's not a lot of sports that I can be good at. Track and field is one of them. Track and field is a sport that's great for just about anybody. If you're fast, we've got sprints. If you're not so fast, we've got more distance in some of these races. If you're good at throws, if you're great at jumps, it's got something for everybody. That's why I love this sport. But what Paul and I have been talking about is, and I'm going to throw out a challenge to all of you, and especially the executive committee of the Coaches Association, track and field isn't enough. And so we're looking at what's the next sport for the Champions Together partnership. And I'm not sure that Paul or I are in a position to answer that question. We think that you are as the coaches. So we will really look upon you to guide us in what the next sport can be. So thanks for being here with us today. Thanks for all that you're doing for your students. In any way that Special Olympics Indiana can support your efforts, please let us know.
Thank you, Jeff, and great words. Folks, my message is short, it's simple, but it just starts with thank you, and I certainly want to end with thank you. You guys have given the gift of participation to kids across the state where they did not have participation opportunities in abundance before, and taking that time, and it's not always easy. You give up, you make personal sacrifice, even a family in your own time, to be able to do those things. So kids have an opportunity to compete, do something to wear their school uniform. There's nothing more important and more informative in your life. And you will all remember the time that we had an opportunity to walk the halls of our school. The time that we had an opportunity to put on the uniform with our school name across it. Wear it in the lunchroom, wear it in the cafeteria, wear it to school, from school. That is such an important part of your life. And giving that opportunity to kids who haven't had that in the past, traditionally haven't had that, students with intellectual disabilities, is just an amazing thing. And thank you for doing that. And I want to reiterate what Jeff just said. We want to expand the program. We want to expand opportunities for kids. This is not a finished product by any means. We want to offer some opportunities in the winter. We're not sure what that looks like. And again, as Jeff said, we want that information to come from you. You are on the ground. You're with your student athletes. You know what matters in your communities and your school. So please work through your Coaches Association to find those opportunities for kids and bring them back to us. And I can tell you this, we're going to listen, and we're going to do everything we can to expand opportunities. So folks, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday morning. As I look out the window, I think it's an awful beautiful day across the state. But what you're doing is worth it, and it matters for kids. So thank you, and thank you for keeping the light on for kids throughout this trying time and this difficult season. You're appreciated, and you always will be. Thank you very much. I think I'm passing back to Brooke.
Thank you. I know I, like so many others, are excited for this season. And I hope today is filled with a lot of information and tips and gets you excited about the season to come. So at 9:15, we are going to watch a video with running drills from Patrick Schooley, who is Dean of Students and Unified Coach at Fishers High School. So we'll take a short break and allow people to get on at 9:15 to watch his video.
Good morning, everybody. This is Patrick Schooley, Unified Track Coach at Fishers High School. I apologize that I cannot join everybody this morning, but we are actually doing the polar plunge this morning over at Eagle Creek Reservoir. So while I am freezing cold, you guys are probably nice and warm. The presentation today, How a Tiger Moves, Fishers High School. We're going to start with our dynamic warm-ups. We have a good variety of the dynamic warm-up activities that we do pretty much every day. We kind of start slow. We don't include all of them on the first couple days. We just kind of add them in as we go. All right. But you see some of the coaching cues there. Eye socket to hip pocket is a phrase that I use. Some people will say lip to hip, and that refers to the arm swing. We want to make sure we have a good full arm swing, getting those hands extended up high and back to the hip pocket. So eye socket to hip pocket. Want to make sure we lift the knees, get some good leg extension. The way we get faster is increase our stride length. Relax our hands. We don't want to run with fists or karate chops. Nice and relaxed hands. Head up and relaxed. Keep those eyes fixed forward so we're not moving our head back and forth as we're trying to run straight. And also most drills are run to half court. Then students can jog to the other baseline when we go outside, and we go to about 10 to 15 yards for these dynamic warm-ups, okay? So what you're going to see is the first slide is going to be a brief description of the purpose and the focus of each drill, and then you'll see some video work from some of our athletes that are just providing examples and demonstrating the drills. All right, here we go. Seated arm rotation.
"90 degrees, eye socket to hip pocket."
And block.
Go. This is a walk, high knees, still focusing on that 90 degrees, eye socket to hip pocket. Knee.
A skip.
Go. A skip, same thing as a walk, but now we're bouncing a little bit.
B walk.
Go. This is B walk. Still eye socket to hip pocket, but high knees, and then extend with the foot. Trying to work on that long stride.
B skip.
Go. This is B skip. Still working on high knees, and then kicking out.
Walking lunges.
Go. This is walking lunge. Same idea. Eye socket to hip pocket with our rotation. High knees on the step. Still focusing on opposite arm, opposite leg.
Long bounding.
Long bounding. High knees.
Side lunges.
side lunge. Step over the box, work on that hip flexibility. 3 and then switch.
Fast, high knees.
Go. Slow it down, Colin. Slower. Slower. Arm swing.
Karaoke.
Go. Karaoke with a knee punch. Punch that knee up. Punch the knee up. Here we go.
Frankenstein walk.
Go. Frankenstein walk. Hamstring flexibility.
Spider walk.
Go. Spider walk. Hip flexibility. Good job.
Caterpillar walk.
Go. Caterpillar walk. Straight legs, feet to hands.
Easy sprint.
Go.
Long strides with hurdles.
Go. Krista. Good job, good job. Colin, go again.
Core strength and flexibility. Not only do you have to work those ab muscles, but you have to work the lower back, glutes, and those all too important hip flexors. Hip rotations.
Go. Hip rotations. 3 knee punches. 1, 2, 3. 3 dog on the hydrants. 1. Get that knee up sideways. 3 kickbacks. Get that leg nice and up. There you go. Okay. Now 3 front to back rotations. Big circles with your knee. Front to back. Yep. Front to back, big circle with your knee. And then 3 back to front rotations with your knee. So kick it, there you go. Big rotation there, AJ. All right.
Pigeon stretch.
Pigeon stretch. And if you point your chest in other directions, you're going to get a different stretch. Okay. Go to left leg. Switch it up. Get your chest down, hips down, chest down.
Iron cross.
Go. This is iron cross. Yep, switch it after about a 3 count, guys. Go ahead and switch it, Krista. Try to get that, straighten out your right leg, Krista.
The scorpion.
Go. Good, Evan. Switch it after a couple seconds. This is scorpion. Good, Krista. Switch it up.
Scissors.
Scissors. Opposite foot to opposite hand. Go, Colin.
V ups.
Go. Get those legs up, Colin.
Seated twists.
Go. Twists. Knees up. If you got to do it with your feet on the floor, that's okay.
Single leg bridge.
Go. One leg bridges. Now just hold it there. Get that leg. That's too high, Evan. Lower your right leg. Lower your right leg, Evan. Perfect. Hold it. Hips up. Switch. Get your hips up. There you go, Krista. Good job. Get that leg down a little bit, Evan. Perfect. Hips up. Down.
Rock the boat.
Boat. Get up in your boat. Hold your boat. Get your feet down a little, Evan. Okay. Now, rock your boat. There you go. Come on, Colin. Your boat is sinking.
Plyometrics. It's very important to do this type of work to help create that explosive running and jumping power that we are all looking for.
Go. Go. Whenever you're ready.
Running progression. On the following slides, you're going to see a couple examples of how we progress from day one, through the first week or two when we start dividing the groups into their sprinting and conditioning activities. All right, we kind of start slow, and obviously we're going to build up to longer sprints throughout the season. Okay, guys, so on this running progression, what we would traditionally do is create 3 different groups for our students, all right, for the team. We usually have a pretty large team, maybe somewhere around 70 total students this year. We're probably going to be in the low 50s. So what we need to do is divide the team into 3 groups based on ability. So group A would be our tournament level students, our long jumpers, those are our fastest, best athletes. Group B would be our mid-level ability students. Some of the shot putters could be in there as well. And then Group C would be our less agile students with some endurance and speed challenges. Would also include those students that just walking is just fine for them. Okay. All right. So if you look at day one here, we would probably not make too many changes. Maybe on that last one where we have the 3x3 by 30 meter full speeds. You know, some of our teammates there in Group C may be able to just do, you know, one of those, or, you know, they're going to still jog those or even walk those, which is absolutely okay. All right. Same thing with day two, maybe not too many changes. That 4x80, you know, for some of them in Group C, maybe that becomes a 2x80. Maybe Group B, that's a 3x80. And we just make those adjustments based off of, you know, ability level. So everything that we see in these workouts would be for our Group A teammates, and then we just kind of reduce it from there. Okay, week one, day three, again, kind of the same thing. Remember, we're working on 3 different groups here based on abilities, groups A, B, and C. Again, not many changes to this one. You know that group C, they may not even do a 300-meter full speed. Most likely, they won't do a 300-meter full speed. They may just stay on the football field on the inside and do walking across the field, or they may jog a little bit and then walk, you know, so whatever their ability level there is. But we definitely have some students we would not even ask to do a 300-meter full speed. All right. So you know, in this scenario, maybe Group B would do, instead of 300, 200, 150, they may do 200, 150, and a 25. Okay, that's how we make those adjustments based on group ability levels. Okay, week 2, same thing. Again, we're looking at ability levels, groups A, B, and C. So again, what we're looking at for day 1 and day 2, that's listed, that's going to be Group A. That's going to be their assigned workout, and then we would make those adjustments from there. Okay, again, looking at day 1, some adjustments would be, you know, maybe Group B is going to do 1 150 and 1 100 and 150, right? And maybe Group C, they're not going to do any 150s, they're not going to do any 100s. They just may do a 50 and then maybe a couple 25-meter runs or walks, whatever they need to do. Okay. Day 2, kind of the same thing. You know, we're looking at the Group A workout there. You know, just an example, Group B, they may be doing, instead of 3 by 30 meters, they're going to do 2. You know, instead of 4 by 60s, they may do 3. And again, Group C, our less agile athletes with some endurance and speed challenges are going to be working on the inside with another coach, doing some walking and jogging. But making sure that they are moving. Okay. Week 2, day 3, again, what we're looking at is a progression, but now we're kind of backing things down a little bit more. Okay, so this is the 3rd day of the week. So again, we're looking at Group A's workouts. Like, just giving you examples, Group B might do 2, 2, and 2 instead of, you know, the 3 sets of by 30s that you see there, or maybe a 3, 2, and 1, or a 3, 2, and 2 as an example. Group C, they may do 1 or 2 of these. They may do 1 30-meter full speed, or as close as they can get the full speed. Again, if it's a light jog, that's fine. If it's a jog and a walk, that's great. If it's just a walk, absolutely fine too. Okay. So again, the key thing there that we believe is when we're doing our running progression and our conditioning is that we do cater it to the skill level of everyone on the team, whether they are partners or athletes. They're all going to be divided up into those 3 skill level groups. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. I'm going to tell you right now that the water was very cold today. All right. Extra special thank you to our amazing and always wonderful video models that you see there. Krista, Colin, Drew, Evan, Emerson, and AJ did a fantastic job. They spent about 2 hours with me on a Saturday morning, helping me film this video for everybody. Okay. So please feel free to contact me if you guys have any questions. You have my email. I hope you all have an amazing unified track season. See you guys down the road. Thank you.
Awesome job to Patrick. That was great. A lot of drills that we all use and stretches. I got a few direct messages during that presentation, and make sure that you know that you can use the chat box, and Lee and Wolfie and I are looking at that, and we'll get to you along with the presenters. Next up is our field event drills for shot and long jump, and we have Mike and Lori Branham. So they are going to do some drills for us.
Share it. Let me
All right.
get to sharing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Branham, and I am a unified track coach at BNL. I've been with the program for about 6 years when we first started. Today, I'm going to share with you some outdoor circuits for shot put. The first station is
There we go.
a med ball putt to partner. This can be done in a group or it can be partners. Supplies needed is 1 6 to 10 pound medicine ball per group. You want to work the skills that we're focusing on is your upper body and twisting to gain power and accuracy, and of course distance. So the first thrower just putts the medicine ball to the partner. The second thrower puts it back. You just increase distance as until it's more challenging for everyone. You can adapt this by having people on their knees, or they can be seated. This can be adapted to wheelchairs, walkers, whatever level. The second circuit is a seated throw. With that one, you need a shot put. This in a chair. So this works on your upper body and throwing form. So the thrower sits in a chair with the back and the buttocks at the back of the chair and legs touching the length of the chair. The thrower holds a shot in a normal starting position. So this is hold the pizza. You want to keep it on your fingertips and then get your neck dirty. Thrower rests just below your ear. So right here is where you want it. The elbow parallel to the ground, and you twist back as far as you can. And then, of course, you want to read the watch with your non-throwing hand. Elbows bent at 90 degrees. And then you swing the non-throwing arm back and then just putt it. That's it. And we call that slap the giant when you putt. So, and off the fingers. The angle drill, you'll need to be a little creative, as we all are. You will need to figure out 2 standards. So maybe a piece of PVC pipe and some track hurdles, or whatever you can move for a 40 to 45 degree angle in front of each thrower. So you set up this obstacle 3 to 5 feet from the throwing circle. The crossbar, like I said, should be at the height that is about 40 to 45 degrees angle from the thrower. The thrower stands in the circle and they just throw it over that crossbar. Then you adjust the height and distance of the obstacle as the thrower improves the distance and form. Throwing for distance. So you need some cones, just some basic cones. Different colors are always great. And a shot put. This works on distance and focus. So you just place the cone at whatever distance they PR'd at the last time you threw, and then just have that thrower focus on that. Once the thrower can consistently throw beyond that, you want to increase it, of course. You can adapt this by using different colored cones. and just make it fun. We do games with this, and it makes throwing a little bit more interesting than just throwing in the pit. Wrist flips. All you need is a shot. This is something you could do indoors. Just don't throw it unless it's an indoor shot. So you can use a softball. Your skill you're focusing on is a proper finish to the throw. So you hold it like a pizza and you just throw at a 45 degree angle. And this works on your muscle memory. And it's just a very important basic that you want to start out with. Throwers can start with a softball or even a tennis ball to get the form down originally. And then once it's been acquired, you just move up. So start with this tennis ball, then go to a softball, go to a 6 pound maybe, then an 8 pound. And then of course, eventually you could do a 10 pound. But of course, we all throw an 8 pound at competitions. I'm going to have Mike go on to the other field events.
All right. There we go. All right. We're going to talk about long jump. And what I'm going to talk about is our long jump progressions. Some of these we do all season long. Some of them will eventually drop off once the athletes start getting their form down. The first one that we do, we work on landing form. And what we need is a bench, basically, or chairs. And the jumpers sit in the chair. And then they shoot their hands up into the air. They straighten their legs out with a bent form, and they reach for their toes. And this is to emphasize, we don't do the bicycle kick because most of my kids are not coordinated enough to do that. So we do a double leg landing. And so this emphasizes how I want them to land. And while they're doing it, we work on the form. And then I emphasize to them to let the sand come to them, not to reach out for the sand. Because a lot of new jumpers want to land solidly on both feet. And as we practice, they realize that if they let the sand come to them, they get an extra foot or two. So that's where we start, is just with the landing form. And this will not take a whole practice. We do probably 10, 15 minutes of this. And then we'll move on to the next one, which is the takeoff. And what we do is the jumper stands at the board. And when we first start, we just start with a broad jump. So they stand at the board. We have them bend their knees as deeply as they can. They swing their arms back, then they shoot their arms forward while extending their legs. And then we have them pop off their toes and then land on 2 feet. And originally they will land on 2 feet because of broad jump, you're not getting a whole lot of distance. However, once they get to that point, we switch to a single foot takeoff because most of them will be having a running start. And so we get to that single foot takeoff. Once they're comfortable with the single foot takeoff jumping into the pit as a broad jump, then we just add a couple of steps so that they can get comfortable with that jump. And eventually they will be doing the landing that we already practiced and adding that onto it. After that, we go to a modified A-skip. We use the chest up, the eyes up, the arms shoot up. And it's a modified A-skip because an A-skip, technically, the knee's at a 90 degree, the hip and the knee are at 90 degrees angles. I have them shoot their knees higher than that and pop up into the air so that we can practice the jump. Once we get the A-skip rhythm down, then we, instead of just doing A-skips for 10 to 15 meters, we'll do a couple of steps and then go into the modified A-skip. And then once they're comfortable with that, we add a deep knee bend into the A-skip as well, so that they are practicing how we want them to hit the board and take off. After that, then we go to the transition into takeoff. This is where a lot of our kids have trouble, is going from running to jumping. So we have them start about 9 strides away from the board. We have the jumper start with the lift leg, and the previous drills are really good at getting them comfortable with which leg's the lift leg and which leg's the takeoff leg. Once they have that figured out, they start with the lift leg. Each time the lift leg hits the ground, they count. They start with 4 and they count down to 1. When they hit 1, their next step will be their takeoff foot. So once they hit that next step, we practice hitting that step. As they run up, they're hitting on their toes. That last step, we want them to hit on their heel. So we hit on our heel on that last step, rotate to the toes, and just pop off into the pit. And this one, you can start off, you don't have to start off full speed. You start off with a walk, change it to a jog, and have them get more momentum. From here, you can add steps to it to help with that transition. Because eventually, about this time, we'll get our marks on the track. And so from here on, as we're practicing that, we will eventually move them back to their starting mark so that they can practice the full takeoff. Once we've got the full takeoff under control and they understand how to jump, they understand how to land, then we all start from, everybody starts from their marks, and we place, again, an obstacle in front of them. And again, you might need to be creative. I've used tackling dummies stacked up. I have used I've used agility hurdles, whatever, just so that we can slowly increase their jumps to the 40 or 45 degree angle that we're looking for. And then some of our students, that's about all they're going to do. Others, we can adapt it by making, extending the obstacle further out. And so we're jumping for angle and distance. I mean, when you've got someone jumping 20 feet, they're going to be doing this drill slightly differently than someone who's jumping 7 or 10. But this also, we adapt into a game. We make it fun. Group challenges, we have them challenge each other to see who can get the best angles, because the better angle, the better distance. And this really builds the team within the jumpers. So I really like this drill. And the jumping for distance, this one I have them do once we get started jumping to help them with their focus, because we'll put a larger cone at the end of the pit, right in the middle. And the whole idea is for them to focus on that cone as they're running. But we have the second cone or a line. I like cones because they can compare to each other and you don't have to keep drawing the line when they jump. But then they jump. Part of our approach is as they take off, when they shoot the hands up, I just tell them to grab the trapeze and then grab their toes. And we jump to see if we can jump for distance. And generally I usually try to bring out different colored cones, and everybody has their own cone lined up along the side of the pit. And again, we can change this into a game or a group activity, because a lot of times they'll try to out jump someone else's cone. But the big part is, I know with a lot of new jumpers, several of them are afraid of going off of the board, the actual board, instead of the end of the pit, because it seems like a long way. They like to look at their feet when they hit the board, and this is teaching them not to. And this can be adapted to any level. We've done it, and we've had the boys and girls teams come over and want to join in, because it's a little bit more fun way to practice long jump. And just to add on, that's about for the field events. If you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to take it. I was also asked to talk about our relay and our progression with the relay events. is very simple. First, we start off just standing there to practice the handoff. And I always have my kids, the person receiving the baton puts their hand back, palm up. I know some runners like to place the baton on an upward swing. I have my kids practice downward all the time. And I know a lot of higher level relays may catch with the left hand, pass with the right hand. I have my kids practice keeping it in their dominant hand. That way we don't run the risk of dropping the baton on the transfer. So we start by standing still, then we spread apart 20 to 25 yards, practice our handoffs from there. And then I take them to the back of the track, and we'll go from the first exchange zone. I'll have my number one runner line up. My second leg will be in there, will be in the third exchange zone. And we run that, working on timing of the exchange so that our runners can get their speed built up and get the exchange done within that exchange zone. We'll run that, and then the second leg will go back to the start. Third leg will line up in the exchange zone. We go through the relay, and then eventually we extend it to a full relay. We'll start with the jog and work our way up to full speed. And I have found that generally my relay team, they do the same skills. We do something a little bit differently because we have one day a week where I work with just the relay runners. So they do sprint drills, they do relay drills. And so we can focus just on the relay runners one day a week. And then the rest of the week, we do the team workouts. Everybody's there. We do have a more detailed version of all of these drills that will be available as handouts. Since I didn't get any cool videos. So they will be on there. And again, Lori is my shot put coach. I work with the relays and the long jumps. So if you have any questions, even after the conference, feel free to reach out to us. And we'd be happy to help you with whatever. Brooke, are there any questions?
One question.
Yes. The handouts will be on the Unified Coaches Association website.
Does anyone else have any other questions? For Mike and Lori, thank you both for all that information.
Thank you.
All right. At 10:05, we are going to have our rules and how Unified Track is scored with David Joyce and Jeff Moeller. So we'll go over some of the new rules and how Unified Track is scored differently if you've been a part of traditional track. So we'll take about a 5-minute break, 10-minute break. All right. So now we have our rules and our scoring from David Jost and Jeff Moeller.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It is so great to be here with you. I will kind of drag my feet here for just a second until we hit 10:05 in case anybody's planning on joining us right then. Yeah, just really excited to see a handful of names I recognize and a lot that I don't. Jeff, how is the weather down at Eagle Creek?
I haven't been there yet. I go right after this.
Okay. All right.
the funny thing is, I'm going to a polar plunge down here. David, you haven't started up there in Lafayette, have you?
We are just getting started. Registration started about 5 minutes ago, so we had a good morning of setup, and I think we're ready to get rolling.
Certainly appreciate West Lafayette High School hosting a polar plunge, or it's not really a plunge, it's more like a polar car wash.
Yeah, we've got a couple 10 by 20 tents set up with the help of some of our great firefighters from West Lafayette with kind of a closed car wash type setup. So yeah, it'll be an adventure, and I'm grateful to be warm now because I have a feeling I won't be here within an hour or so. Well, I think we've hit 10:05, so we will go ahead and get started. Again, so grateful for this opportunity to be here together to talk about rules and scoring. Excited to tag team this presentation with Special Olympics CEO Jeff Moeller. I selfishly just included myself on the bio here. I'm sure many of you know Jeff in his role at Special Olympics and also helping to kind of oversee and help manage this partnership with Special Olympics and the IHSA. In addition, Jeff's also a certified official, so he brings a great deal of track background on top of his professional background here as well. My name is David Jost, as Brooke mentioned, and I'm at West Lafayette High School. This is my 9th year in total in the classroom. I was at John Marshall on the east side of Indy for 1 year prior to coming back to West Lafayette, where I'd student taught previously. My little brother, John, who is pictured there in the bottom corner, is a Special Olympics athlete and had the opportunity to participate on Carmel's Unified team for a handful of years. And that was probably the highlight of his experience. And so way back in probably 2013, I think, when I first heard about Unified Track, I knew it was a program that John would absolutely love being a part of. And I figured if I could bring that to students at West Lafayette, then that would be a great thing. In addition to my role with the Unified program, I also serve as the head coach for the boys and girls cross country teams. And then for the last few years have been the distance coach for the track and field team. I've kind of stepped away from that just a little bit. I'm still involved on a volunteer capacity with the distance team this spring to focus primarily on Unified. So I've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot of great things within the running world. The West Lafayette boys won the cross country state championship in 2014. I've had the opportunity to coach the girls 4x8 state champions the last 2 years, and so in 2018 and 2019, and really nothing from that compares to the joy I get and the pride I take in the work with Unified. That picture there was from a Unified Invitational that we hosted at West Lafayette, and the Carmel team that John was on participated in that. And I've got to say, outside of my wedding day, that's about the proudest day of my life. So just really grateful to be with you. And I know we've probably got a variety of people on here, those that have been around since the beginning, and those that are just getting started. And I hope you all have the kind of experience that I have had with this program. Additionally, I also I'm a USA Track and Field certified official. So while I spend my high school sort of running interactions coaching, I officiate some college track meets on the side. So I want to spend just a minute or so highlighting the philosophy of Unified Sports, because I think if we can all get on a similar page here, the rules and structure and scoring will make a lot of sense. And so forgive me, I promise I won't read directly from any slide but this one, but wanted to just work through this thoroughly. The focus of Unified Sports is competition, not simply participation. Sports teach many life lessons: to work as a team, to follow rules, to be committed. Through sports, we can find shared interests that allow friendships to form. Through the IHSA Special Olympics Indiana Unified Sports Program, we have an opportunity to make real positive changes in the lives of students with and without disabilities. We must have high expectations for students with intellectual disabilities, because if we do not, we are teaching another generation of regular education students that people with intellectual disabilities can't follow rules or can't be held accountable. And as a result, they will not be viable members of their community or society in general. So this is something that if you go to the IHSA bylaws, you'll find this Rule 200. I'll talk about kind of where some of these rules come from here momentarily. But just as the brother of an athlete, I just want to share that this is something that his experience meant a lot, not just because he got to socially be a part of a team, that he got to competitively represent his high school, and he took a great deal of pride in that for sure. But speaking kind of for my parents and myself both, the fact that he was challenged and held to standards, and this is definitely a great piece of this program, that as coaches, we really have the ability to sort of help create that experience. And so, I just think it's great to start off here. Jeff, I don't know if sort of philosophically you have anything you want to add there.
I think the main philosophical thing I'd want to say is at the tail end of this. I think it's the next to last slide, so I'll hold off until then.
All right. Again, wanted to kind of point you in the direction of where these rules come from. I know Unified coaches come from a variety of backgrounds, maybe some from the Special Olympics community, some from the special ed community, some from varsity track and field. And so, again, depending on where you're coming from, this may be particularly helpful information. So the IHSA bylaws set up the general rules for sports. And so this is a pretty extensive document, maybe 200 pages, that you can find on the IHSA website. I have it linked to this slide, so as you access these down the road, if need be, you can access directly from this. I've got the page numbers listed here. I wanted to put those down here to maybe try to encourage you not to be scared off by this. We're talking a grand total of 4 or 5 pages, and so I think it would be well worth 10 or 15 minutes of coach's time to glance through this, especially if you're a new coach. Next up, the spring bulletin. So the IHSA publishes their tournament information, as well as kind of some random frequently asked questions, miscellaneous rule changes maybe every season. And while we're currently operating off of the 2019-2020 spring bulletin, I don't think there are necessarily any major changes expected. And so aside from potentially the location of the tournament sites, and I think within the next couple weeks, we probably will have the 2020-2021 spring bulletin up on the IHSA webpage. And then finally, the NFHS, National Federation for High School Sports, I think is the acronym, and they set the governing rules for high school sports across the country. Your varsity coach probably has a copy of this. Your AD may as well. They sell physical copies. I couldn't give you a price point on those. They're not particularly expensive, but that's a reference point. I'm going to be honest, I think between the IHSA bylaws, spring bulletin, and the coaches training that I'm going to talk about here, I would be surprised if you would need to refer to that. But anyway, that's where kind of the governing rules from track come from.
Although, David, from the official standpoint, not knowing that there was a rule in this rule book, not having read the rule book yourselves as coaches is not an excuse to ask an official to throw out a rule or not apply a rule. So it's kind of like the general law across the country. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Absolutely. Point very well taken there.
But I will offer, though, that please email me if there are certain cases that come up throughout the year. I've done similar trainings with 2 officials associations across the state, and I'm open myself to do more for officials. So just as you are going through training like this, we're trying to train the officials as well when it comes to unified track. So I'm here to help. So if you don't want to read the 80-page rule book, email me.
Thanks. And then last but not least, the IHSA mandates training for head coaches. I think there's a late March deadline this year. Hopefully you've received an email from your AD already, and if not, that would be worth following up on. It's through the myihsa.net portal. I am in the classroom like probably many of you, and have the opportunity, if you will, to take probably a dozen sort of online trainings over the course of the year. And this is far and away the most practical and informative one. So props to the team for putting that together, because this is one that I don't have nearly as hard of a time making my way through. And so some of the scenarios that we're going to touch on briefly are, I think, really thoroughly explained there. So at the end of this, I'm very happy to take questions, but at the same time, know that there is another resource kind of coming your way if you haven't already come across that. We are going to move really quickly through the next handful of slides. These are probably definitions that have already been discussed, but something I know at least that will probably impact my team is a rule change that previously it was our partners, so not our athletes, but our partners could not be on the IHSA tournament roster. Now, so like if I had a JV runner, they with no approval could be on the tournament entry list for Unified. Now that has changed. If they've participated in that sport in either the varsity or the JV level, freshman level, any level, then they are not allowed to be on the tournament list. Unless you seek approval from the commissioner. Potentially having a very small school could be, maybe something that would allow approval for something like that. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything to add to this change.
No.
Okay. The biggest thing
I'll just say that eligibility like this, these are not questions for meet officials. For the most part, when we arrive with gun in hand to start races, that's all we're doing. Eligibility is between the coaches, the athletic director, school administration, and the Indiana High School Athletic Association. We officials want to stay out of these situations. So.
Awesome. Just wanted to make one point, thinking about when I wear my Unified coach hat, probably the biggest thing that I have to train my partners in at the front end of the season is that they are our competitors. Yes, they are absolutely, serving as role models and peers and friends throughout this process, but they are absolutely competitors. And so I guess before I became a little more intentional about teaching this to them at the front end, I would regularly get the question of, hey, I'm racing an athlete. Do I go at 100%? And the answer is unequivocally yes. And so, yeah, we may touch on that a little bit more later. Again, these athlete definitions you should see. I wanted to highlight these 2 points because, again, as we start getting into the nuts and bolts of the rules, they really embody some of these goals, standards that we've set for success within this Champions Together partnership. So meaningful involvement and compliance with official rules. And it's certainly the hope that the rules for Unified Track and all unified sports reflect these priorities. So from a coaching standpoint, again, this is more sort of the behind the scenes before you get to the meet. The standard IHSA 10 practice rule is in place. So you want to make sure you've scheduled, I usually shoot to have at least 15 or so practices prior to the first in case somebody's gone for something or, dentist appointment, whatever else, or weather cancellations. Because again, this is measured on an individual basis, not the team has completed 10 practices. It's every individual in order to be eligible. During the regular season, you do have some flexibility if you'd like to add other NFHS track events. However, we have just the standard events within the tournament. I've done this since the beginning, and I can only think of maybe one meet we've participated in that added a 200-meter dash. And so it can be done, but if it's not one of those NFHS rules, you have to seek the commissioner's approval for that. So Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the 50-meter dash would be an example of something that would require commissioner's approval since it's not an approved event.
Correct.
Awesome.
So that's a one that we do with our Special Olympics community-based programs. We do 50s, but it's not a federation sanctioned event. So you would have to seek approval for that.
All right. So our regular season, sorry, we're starting to get into the meet structure here. No more than 8, no fewer than 4, unless there are fewer than 4 entries. These are always going to be division by ability. And so we are never going to separate athletes and partners into their own heats. We'll get into a little bit more later. So gender, athlete designation doesn't matter. It's strictly based on ability. Now that may be a little bit shaky at the start of the season, but as time goes on, hopefully we're always updating these with our most accurate seeds, and that's going to create this meaningful competition that we're striving for. The spring bulletin does a good job of kind of clarifying the structure of how this should work. All right, scoring. This is a silly comparison, but maybe will help. I always think of the Neon Trees song, Everybody Talks. I think Everybody Scores is a quick way of thinking about this. Everybody in every heat scores points. Every heat scores equally. So your first 8 runners, fastest 8 runners, are going to compete against one another in the first heat. They have the ability to, first place scores 10 points. If it's, let's say there are 40 participants in the field, your slowest 8 runners are going to be in the 5th heat. The fastest runner from that heat, whoever wins that, is going to score 10 points. So we can talk a little more about maybe the strategic implications for that as time goes on. This format potentially rewards some, diversity and ability, I would say, within your team in order to make sure you've got, people potentially competing in different heats. Shout out to my little brother there in the bottom right corner of this picture. He is having a great time, as you can probably tell. Tournament dates. State meet is a really, really fun event. We've had the ability to participate in that once. Just a special time down in Bloomington. Probably the biggest difference, the amount or the number of events per NFHS rules, 4 is the maximum number. And so in the regular season, that's fine. And I always put everybody that can in 4 events to get the maximum number of times and performances down during the regular season. And that gives me flexibility as I'm creating my tournament entry list. In the tournament, you are limited to 2 events, including the relay. So there's some more details here. I am running a little bit low on time, so I'm going to kind of keep moving us through this. Relays are 2 athletes and 2 partners after the entry. So this is really something that the coaches and the meet management are aware of, who's a partner and who's an athlete. Nobody else, at any point needs to know those distinctions. And we'll talk about that later. From a coaching perspective, substitutions, this is probably a place where hangups can happen. And so just note that up until the Thursday prior to the event at 4 p.m., you can make changes, and then the seating will be done after that. You can scratch people out after that, but you will not be able to make a replacement. So just note that deadline. This is, one of those things that sports teach is dependability. And so, yes, there absolutely is a competitive disadvantage to your team if an athlete doesn't show up or a partner doesn't show up for some reason. To be frank, I've had way more challenges with partners than I have with athletes in this area. So anyway, just part of being on a team is being there. Certainly, we understand that occasionally, sickness or something like that can happen, but that's the same challenges that every other sport faces as well. All right, this is a rule change for this year because we didn't have a season last year. So it started out Olympic Committee, or the governing bodies internationally, changed this a few years back, and it's trickled its way down to NFHS and Unified Sports. The exchange zone used to be 20 meters. Oh, sorry. And so you've got that diagram down at the bottom. A little bit goofy to read. This diagram is moving from right to left. So you used to have this 10-meter acceleration zone that you could start running during, but then the exchange actually had to take place during those bigger triangles. And so as long as the baton changed hands, feet placement is not what we judge on, it's baton exchange, happened within that 20 meters, you were fine. Now you have that full 30 meters. So there's now no longer acceleration zone like what you have there. You have that full 30 meters to exchange the baton. Now, most of the tracks probably immediately are not going to reflect this. So you need to be aware that depending on what location you're at, you need to treat this on the far right, this acceleration zone triangle, you need to treat that like the start of the exchange zone. Any tracks that are resurfaced may have the new markings. Jeff, I don't know if you want to add anything here.
The only thing is, on placement of your runners within these zones, you cannot be any farther to the right than that small triangle. If your feet are outside that, meaning further to the right, that's a disqualification for the team. So they can touch it, but they can't be on the other side of it. They can't straddle it. One foot cannot be on the triangle and on the other side. You got to be completely to the left of that or on it. For the most part, it should make your life easier, I would assume, because it gives you more distance and you don't have to worry about the acceleration zone. It gives you more distance.
Yeah, absolutely. More flexibility there, I think, can be a good thing. Wheelchairs. So during the regular season, you've got some options here, shot put as well as races on the track, as long as their competitors are also in wheelchairs. During the tournament, the shot put, is the only option here. Modifications. So again, meaningful competition, following the rules, absolutely priorities. But obviously the sport has been modified to try to promote meaningful competition for all involved. And so here are some of the ways that that's done. So both genders use what is the women's weight in high school for shot, which is a 4-kilogram shot. Long jump, a change here. For this is if you are jumping 13 feet or beyond, you must use the regular takeoff board. Typically, we will tape or paint or put a second board pretty close to the sand for those that may not, maybe on their own, be able to reach the pit based on the distance from that board. Also, a standing long jump may be used here.
David, the change for the rule, we would have implemented last year if we had a season. The change for the rule is that there were a number of students who were going all the way up to the pit for the made up takeoff board. And if you jump 13 feet or beyond that, you're coming really close to the end of the sand pit. So it's more for safety precautions than anything else.
Awesome, thanks. Accommodations. So the way false starts are handled, if anybody's familiar with swimming, I think this is the way it's treated in that sport. So in varsity, Olympic track and field, the athletes are normally recalled and the athlete is removed from the track. Here we are not going to do that. Sorry, I keep my PowerPoint is little less cooperative. Sorry, I'm reaching, I know the end of our time here. So anyway, the goal is to work that out with the coaches and timers and allow everyone to finish while still enforcing that rule if an advantage was gained by jumping the gun. All right. Motionless. So at the starting line, that is the expectation. But if rocking and swaying is necessary.
So we all know athletes who will do this. Their feet will remain motionless or in a stationary position, not moving towards the finish line, but they will do this. Track and field officials we are taught that this is, I can't move, I can't give the next command. I can't fire the gun if I see somebody doing this. So we're teaching our officials that if we get some rockers, be accommodating.
Thanks.
As long as you don't give an unfair advantage. And that judgment's up to the official though.
Running outside of the assigned lane. So in the 100, as long as there's not interference with another athlete, do not disqualify that athlete. In the 400, if you move inside, that means you're running a shorter distance. And so that is gaining an advantage by not following the rules. And so a disqualification is appropriate there. And then from the timing perspective, really whether you're using a fully automatic timing system or even hand times, if athletes do tend to deviate from their lane, hip numbers can be tremendously helpful there. When we started doing that for our invitational, it made a large difference. Assistants can be used. So these are non-scoring partners that may run alongside, in front of, or behind, but they may not touch the person they're helping or interfere with any other competitors. Just to speak to this for a second, as the brother of an athlete, if John is able to run the 400 by himself, I would much prefer to see him run the 400 by himself than I would see someone running along next to him cheering for him. It may make him run a couple seconds faster, but I would much, much rather see him do that by himself. All right. So, Jeff, do you want to kind of close up here? I'm sorry, I've pushed this to the end of time.
Yeah. Well, this is the philosophy statement that I have, and this is what we've lived by in Special Olympics. We've done unified sports and Special Olympics since the early 1990s. So we have decades of evidence when it comes to this. Here's the statement. If I'm a partner and I look down the starting line, and if I start playing the game, who's an athlete, who's a partner, I've lost the point of all this. It's to reduce, if not eliminate, the labels. The labels are for us who administer the meet, not for coaches and not for athletes to worry about or partners to worry about during the meet. I'm a partner and I'm running down the track. And if I think David mentioned it briefly, but if I let up at the end, because I think this guy or gal next to me is an athlete, I'm showing pity. That there is no greater respect that I as a partner can give to an athlete than the willingness to defeat them in competition fairly. Because then I've removed any consciousness of that label. They're trying to steal points from my team, and I want to earn points from my team, and that's the respect. We also have to be aware that there is a federal law that says to openly identify individuals within Special Olympics can be a violation of their rights. So that's why you should not have races that are athletes only, because you're communicating to the entire crowd, these students are in special education. So that's why we have a mixture of partners and athletes. It's all based upon their qualifying times or distances. Of course, we know that maybe that very last race will be all athletes, but it's all determined by their ability, not based upon their label.
Awesome. Thanks a ton. Brooke, I apologize. I went just a couple minutes too long. Are there any questions we can answer here? And my email is there, so I'd be more than happy to follow up with anybody. I know we went through a few of those things pretty quickly.
David, I put into the chat an Excel spreadsheet. I hope you can download it. That helps you identify how many people to put into lanes based upon, or heats based upon how many total competitors. And I've also put in my email. If there's any rule interpretation that I can help with, I will hope to do so. And if I can't, I will find the person who can help you.
Great. Are there any questions? This session, I feel like, you know, a lot of us have maybe done this for a long time, or new coaches, there's always questions about the rules and scoring. So this session, that's okay that you ran a little over. This is important stuff. Any questions? Well, thank you both, David and Jeff, for your time this morning. Hope the water's not that cold for you both.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you. Next up, we are going to do our team building, communications, and fundraising. And for this session, we have Haley Anderson Roberts and Carol Fike Baker.
Yeah, so I am Haley Anderson Roberts. I teach at Franklin Community High School in Franklin, Indiana. I've been coaching Unified Track. I actually started our program back in 2017. We started with 13 students and we've built up to about over 40 over the last 5 or 6 years. We still are like a smaller school of like 1,600. So for the most part, I do run most of these programs myself. So a lot of what I do comes straight from me. And I think that's helpful. I know with teams starting, it's hard to get assistants. And I have some assistants that come in and out. This year, I think I'm gonna have more assistants than I've ever had. There's been years I've had none. There's been years I've had some intermittent ones. So I know how some of this can be difficult at times. Carol, do you want to introduce yourself now, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can. Oh, excuse me. I'm Carol Fike Baker. I coach at DeKalb. So this is our 4th year. My husband and I actually started the program here. And so we pretty much run everything year round. And then we have assistants that come and go based on the sport.
Okay, so I'm kind of starting off with team building activities. I know this is one that Carol had put in there, but I think so, right? The name game is something that we like to start with. There's a lot of different activities I kind of started out with here, and team building I think is so important. With no matter what you do, these are just kind of good ideas. You're not going to have a good team unless you really are pushing like that inclusion, that we're here together, we need to get to know each other, help create those friendships. I always emphasize with my students that I run the Best Buddies program at our school too, and I always emphasize this is like best buddies, but you see each other every day and you're getting to do something different. So I think Carol put this one in here, but one thing we start with is a name game. That's one idea. Some things I start with are team stretches. I call that team bonding because I have my seniors, my juniors leading the team. They help come up with the stretches. They help come up with the, that's something I do at the beginning and end of every practice, because we have throwing, jumping. We went through all those drills that you can do. And I think team stretching and drills, I count that as team bonding and team building, because that's a time where everyone's together. We're not separated on the track. We're not doing the relays. We're all at one team. And then I do relays a lot more. The drills, like some that we've heard throughout this conference a little bit, drills like high knees, butt kickers, all different kinds of things that you can do to help do the dynamics that you saw earlier. That's what I count as kind of our team drills. And like I said, that's another type of thing where I think it's really good to have everyone together. Team relays, I do that a lot more. And I actually like to say, I emphasize later on, but I do that a lot more in like a COVID-free year, I'd say. Because that's where we're stuck inside, but these are still fun to do even outdoors. But when I'm stuck inside doing stuff in the gym, we do a lot of silly races like crab wheelbarrows, crab walks, whatever is possible with the crew that's in the crew that's on my team. Sometimes it's just sprint out and back. Sometimes it's who can do like dizzy bats. I come up with those relays generally on the spot when we're just at practice and we need to fill the time in or we need to kind of shake it up. That's where the relays come in, and it brings the kids together because you're putting them into groups, you're racing each other, you're kind of creating new competitions there, which is a lot of fun. These are also team meetings. That's like, this is kind of a little hodgepodge, but team meetings is part of that kind of list there. It helps encourage. I like to meet once a week. Generally, it's just like what I do with our cross country team even. We meet once a week to literally remind the kids, especially our partners, why are we here? Why did you join the team? What's your commitment? What did you do that was really successful last year? What did you do that was really successful last week? What do you want to do to make the team better next week? I think it's really important to set goals and really work towards them. Sometimes, now that we've kind of been in this COVID environment and I've started doing this through Google Classroom, we even just set them on Google Classroom to help get ready for the year. Every Friday as kind of get to know you icebreakers. Every Friday is game day for me. And I do tag, we do football, we do kickball, we do duck, duck, goose, we do sharks and minnows. That's another one I forgot to add. We do all kinds of games. Some of them, like duck, duck, goose, almost you would think, oh, that just seems like something you do in elementary school. And I kind of thought that. And my first year coaching, one of the kids came up with that. And we don't do that one very often, but they just love to get out there and have fun. And I think that's kind of the spirit of Unified, is having fun and learning these drills, and but also getting to know one another, and sometimes doing something a little different, maybe once a week or outside of practice, is very important for the kids. And I talked about this with Carol too. Some other ideas, I think she said she even starts her very first practice with the scavenger hunt. And I do scavenger hunts with the kids for team bonding, the human knot where you all grab each other's hand and you have to use communication to untie each other. That's another good one. I typically do a team dinner, especially the Friday before sectionals, before our big meets. This year, that's gonna be a little bit different. That's where we're just gonna do a team Zoom call or something different. I'm kind of working on the creativity there, but I love team dinners and team outings. I think it really promotes that conversation, and that's so important, is that conversation and creating those friendships. And that's what team bonding and team building is all about. So those are kind of some of the simple things I add into those practice from days to days. Every day at the end of practice, I encourage a high five, saying a great job. I know high fives are kind of discouraged upon right now, but things like that. We'll continue on just to telling I literally make the students tell every single person, so that you have a chance to talk one-to-one to every person on the team. Great job today. Great work. I saw you did this. Great job. And then I tell them to reflect on what they went well, what maybe they want to improve on tomorrow, so we can set those goals together. And then I added in real quickly, communication, since I know we're team bonding communication. For me personally, I send out emails and newsletters every week, knowing them what to expect. So every Sunday I send out an email saying, this is what practice looks like. This is what I'm going to expect. I keep a parent email list. I use Google Forms. I send out to those email lists to collect data throughout the season. Remind 101, like we've talked about earlier today, and GroupMe are great ways for instant communication for a lot of families. And then I also have a Unified Track Google Classroom for those students. And like I said, for communication, if this loads, I don't know if that, does that still show?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of one of the example of a newsletter I give out for communication. And this is saying like they need their physicals. Our school requires transportation fees, important dates, meet schedule, practice schedule. So that's kind of how I run my team with communication. And I'll kind of hand it over to Carol. We wanted to kind of leave it up for, now I'm kind of getting stuck here. I can get this to share. I don't know what's, there we go. So I'll kind of hand it over to Carol. I know I kind of went through that quickly, but we want to make sure we give everyone a chance for questions too.
Yeah, so I already introduced myself. I'm just going to talk about fundraising because we always need money. to run our programs and all of those things. So here's some of the ideas that we've done or we've used. But we're hoping to leave a little bit of time at the end for other suggestions. And then we kind of made like a resource bank that we're going to share. So a lot of local restaurants will encourage you like to invite your team or like your families to go and eat, and then you get a certain percentage of the money. So some that I know will do it are Buffalo Wild Wings, Wings Etc., McDonald's, Culver's. Basically, you encourage your team to go to those restaurants, and then you get a certain percent of the proceeds from that night. It's also great because we did a B-Dubs night last year, and like all of our teams were there, and the kids just kind of hung out, and it was just a lot of fun. So yeah. So and check other local restaurants that you guys have. I know like around us we have like Mad Anthony's, and they'll do it as well. So it doesn't hurt to ask. Just and then it's a good way to have your teams get together and eat some food. So what we usually do in a non-COVID year is we have these huge events. I know I don't know if Pepple's still on, but Pepple does like bike day, and he says that he makes like so much money in one day. So basically you have your athletes and your partners work together and create like a huge event, and then you'll see a huge profit from that one day. So like what we always do is we do like a basketball awareness night, and so we do that during a regular basketball game, and then our basketball team plays at halftime, and then the kids go in the stands and have like a bucket and they get money, and we have silent auction, and we have bake sale items. So yeah, so definitely some good times. Put as many things as you can, especially if you are at something that's already going to be a big event. So like we usually pick like the biggest basketball rivalry or a big game. And then last year we didn't get to have it because of COVID, but our athletes and partners had paired off, and then they were going to create like carnival games that were going to be at the track, and then we were going to send out information to all of the like the elementary schools to come and play different carnival games, and then we were going to have food and silent auction, and so it was going to be a chance for us to earn a lot of money, and then obviously our families all come. So yeah, so it's a great opportunity to get some money for our program. And the kids planned all of it. They said, well, this is what we want. We want to sell t-shirts, or this is what we want to do. So definitely get them involved, because then they'll be more likely to invite their families and those kinds of things. I'm trying to remember what's on the. Oh, sorry, I just talked about this. So we did have our awareness night at basketball. So those are some of the things that we did. But honestly, I don't remember how much we made. We didn't get to do it this year because of COVID restrictions, but last year we made a lot of money just doing those simple things that the kids had helped play in. Is that the last slide, Haley? Do you remember?
Looks like, yes, on your side it's the last slide.
Okay, so then Haley and I made a Google Doc. So basically we took the important stuff from our PowerPoint and kind of made like an idea bank. So I think it was Lori. Yeah, Lori talked about ultimate frisbee or doing like dance. So I added that to our list, but I thought it might just be nice to have kind of a list of different fundraising ideas. So if people needed ideas, so if anybody has anything, Haley or I can add that to our list, and then we'll just post that on the website.
Yeah.
Or if anybody has questions.
Yeah, we were talking when we were making this, and I think team building and fundraising and communication are things that we felt like even we come up with better ideas together when you actually communicate at these type of conferences. So we figured we'd leave any of this leftover time up to any of you guys if you had questions or anything to add to it that we kind of put in this presentation so far. Because like I said, on my end with team building, I'm coming from the end of I do run the program pretty much myself, and I know it was always intimidating to me to hear all these bigger schools like I do this and this and this, and you could do. I've actually adapted a lot of the same things just down to what works for my school, and I think that's kind of important. So if anyone had any questions or anything to add, I think this is kind of where we are left now. color run. Northside does a color. I actually looked at doing something like a color run one year. Last year, now that I'm talking about this out loud, I was going to, for fundraising, I was going to do I saw Center Grove Unified team does like the Unified Kids Days, and they had like all the elementary schools competed in unified sports, and I was attempting to run that last year, but obviously we can't do that yet with COVID restrictions. So I'm hoping to fundraise in that manner and to bring awareness to all of our district, hopefully next year.
I know another thing that normally works really well for us is we always sell McDonald coupon books, so you can get them. So hopefully nobody near me takes this idea. Just kidding. So we like get the coupon books from the Ronald McDonald Foundation, and then you get a huge percent of the sales, which has been it's been a really good fundraiser for us. Oh, thank you, Lori. So one big thing that I was going to say, and I didn't say this, is a lot of local like businesses will support, like just give you money. So it never hurts to ask for money. And honestly, the people that get the best donations are the kids. So like one of my kids came and was talking to me, and she's like, hey, I want to get new track uniforms and my dad's business will sponsor it. So so we wrote a letter, and she's going to go present it to try and get new track uniforms that won't cost us anything. So talk to the kids. They have great ideas. And it never hurts to ask for money, as bad as it sounds.
Yes. Virtual. I think I saw, was that virtual 5K the one that you emailed out to everyone? I think I saw that. I may actually try something like that soon. And then, yeah. Yeah, I love all these different ideas. That's why I think it's important for us all to see them.
Yeah, Ryan put in the chat about his bike day. So those are great ideas.
Yeah. Handcrafted paper cards. Our local Unified for Faculty basketball game.
And I'm adding all of these ideas to our list that we'll send to Brooke to post on the website.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome job,
I'll make
ladies.
sure it looks better than it is formatted right now.
No worries. That is awesome. Everyone has great ideas, and that's what's great about clinics and just sharing ideas, because one idea may expand and look different than in our areas.
Yes, that's what I have found. For anyone that's new on here, I think even with team building, like I can tell you, I'm probably the least, I just lost the word, creative person. And just having clinics, and my first clinic like 4 or 5 years ago, the last time we had like an in-person clinic, I think they're so helpful. So the more ideas we can bounce off of each other, I think it really does help all of our teams as a whole, from everything as little as team building to all the way to the fundraising.
I agree. Our team loves kickball on Fridays. That's kind of something that we look forward to every Friday.
Yeah, we've done a lot of Sharks and Minnows. The last 2 years has been like the #1 game they request, and you really do see a change. Like when we do one of those games or those scavenger hunts, you really do see it help with the bonding. The kids, I think I think I should add though, since we are still on this, with team building, I actually create captains, leaders for each event. And I think that makes the older juniors and seniors, now that my team has been around long enough, they know what they're doing. That helps too. That helps a lot. Because then they're also kind of like your volunteer coaches, but they're still an athlete. So that's the other little thing that can make a big difference.
Yes, team captains are definitely needed once you get your program up and going. And the next session actually talks about how to expand that even further once they graduate and exit school. So That'll be great. So thank you so much to both of you, Carol and Haley, for your presentation today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Up next, we are going to talk about developing lifelong leaders. And we have a video presentation with Mitch Bonar and his coach, Andrew Skaggs, and where it all started.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Hi, coaches out there. Welcome to our little seminar here, a little discussion about how to create lifelong leaders. With me today, I've got two special guests. First of all, the original coach of the Unified Track team at Noblesville High School, Andrew Skaggs. Andrew was the coach beginning in 2014, and Noblesville was one of the original 13. And to put that in perspective for some of you newbies, we started out with 13, and this year we've already got over 100 schools signed up, and we're still signing them up. We're about to 110, so we're looking forward to a really big year this year. Andrew stayed the coach there for 5 seasons. During that, he won the first ever sectional, and there were only 2 that year, and won 3 straight. In that third year, in 2016, he led the Millers to the runner-up in the state trophy. So Andrew, great to have you with us here today. And also we have Mitch Bonar. Mitch was a member of that original team in 2014. He was a junior at the time. He was co-captain of the team for 2 years. So the Millers won sectionals both of those years. And then he came back as an assistant coach under Andrew at his invitation. And during that time, he not only coached his sister, but he coached one of those teams that was state runner-up. So he's got a state runner-up ring too. So now I'm going to turn it mainly over to you. And Andrew, I'm going to start with you. When did you first hear about this unified track thing, and what kind of drew you to it?
I first heard about unified track, the actual IHSA unified track program. I heard about it probably about 2 weeks before we started assembling the program, and unified sports was not a new concept to me. In college, I played on a unified basketball team that was also a state runner-up at one point.
Yeah.
There's a pattern there, but it was something that just always interested me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed unified sports because it put everyone on an equal playing field. And it gave a chance for us to just all be involved. And when I found out about unified track and field through the IHSA, it was an absolute no-brainer that I wanted to be a part of it any way I could. And
so did you volunteer? Did you step forward? Had there been some sort of solicitation? Because as I said, we only had 13 schools in the entire state. How do you hear about it at Noblesville? How did that process go?
It actually, the first person who approached me about it was Mike Hash, the athletic director at the time. And he and I had talked. He knew I coached basketball for the middle school at the time, but I also had coached unified. And I was a special education teacher. And he approached me, and I was honest with him, like, hey, I don't know much about track, but I know a lot about unified. And I would just love to be an assistant or a head coach or any type of coach, just to be a part of it. And the conversations went from there. But it was, as soon as he approached me about it, I was probably saying yes before he finished the sentence.
So let me ask you this: back when you were participating in unified basketball in college, what did you feel like you got out of it? What did you feel like the athletes got out of it? What made it so special to you?
I think it's interesting being asked this question, because it's the question I started asking all our athletes and partners at the end of every season. And I asked that question because I think I kind of knew the answer. The first year I started unified, I thought I was going to come in and, have to be more of just a person on the floor to make sure we're in the right spots, or, that I was going to be helping and giving back. And the truth of it is I didn't really have, we were a team. We held each other accountable. I learned that you know, we all wanted to win. We all had goals. We wanted to get better. I also learned that I was going to learn a ton more than I gave, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you get a ton more out of it than you expect going into it. And it was just a learning experience of how capable our athletes are, and how independent they can be if given the chance.
Awesome. Well, let's switch up to you, Mitch. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm
Great.
at college right now, so I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. I first met you when you were a junior in high school, and watched you through your junior and senior year. And then after you graduated, you really didn't do much that year. Tell us about how you made that transition from high school to a year of kind of nothingness, and then what happened after that, so these folks know what happened to you since.
Okay, so to start off, like in high school, I was a very shy young man. He came and visited me and gave me an opportunity of a lifetime, I say nowadays, to come with him and a young lady from Carmel to the Special Olympics United States Games or National Games, and it kind of woke me up. He told me about Unified at that time, and which kind of led to me talking to Hash, which led to him talking to Skaggs, Coach Skaggs. But I was a very nervous young man at that time. I wasn't very included in school, and after that in high school, after high school I didn't know what I was going to do because I have testing anxiety pretty bad, and I didn't know what was going to be capable. So I ended up going to Ivy Tech because my best friend, who is 5'0", while going at Purdue, and she inspired me to go to a community college, and here I
Okay,
am.
so let's talk about that for a second. You're of course talking about Abby Abel, who played point guard at Purdue, and as you said, she's about 5'0". Now she's an assistant coach at the high school level here in Indiana. But because of that relationship that developed through Unified Sports, she was a huge encouragement to you. But I know there were others who were on your Unified team who were always encouraging you. They'd come home from college and you'd be playing video games and watching movies. And I know some of them also said, you can do more than that, Mitch, right?
Right. They sent me a lot of text messages of encouragement. We all hanged out, and it was a good wake up call. I say it woke me up.
And you started taking some courses at Ivy Tech. And again, we at least partially credit that to your involvement with Unified Sports and the friends and the support network that you got from them, and the, quite frankly, courage that you got from them. And then what happened after you got to Ivy Tech? You took one course that first year, and then where'd you go from there?
I started taking 3 and then maybe 4, and then I realized that I could do college. So I looked into managing our college basketball team as well when I was there. And I was also an assistant coach under Skaggs at that time.
And then you did so well at Ivy Tech. What came next?
I transferred to Indiana Wesleyan, and that is where I am today.
And you're a full-time student at Indiana Wesleyan with about a 3.0 grade point average. Is that right, or more than that?
3.3.
Okay, excuse me.
It's gone up.
All right. 3.3 grade point average is a full-time student in college. That's fantastic. So would you agree with me that Unified Sports and the relationships and the confidence, all that had a huge impact on your life?
Of course. If without Unified, I think I'd still be that kid who was wondering what I had next in life or what potential I had. Thanks to being allowed to lead that Unified team, I realized I was a born leader. Kind of, I was born to help others understand that they're capable of so much more and not be afraid of anything that comes in front of them. And
Yeah,
be
you
encouraged.
you did a great job of passing that lesson along. Andrew, let's go back to you for a second. You were close enough to where I lived that I got to come out to some of your practice. I was there for your very first practice, which was like most first practices, a disaster.
Yep.
Nobody knows what to do. Yeah, and most of the coaches like yourself don't have a background in track and field, but I was able to observe you as you got further and further into it. Really, I'd go out and I couldn't tell the athletes from the partners. Was that intentional? And if so, what sort of things did you do to make that happen?
It was definitely intentional, and it was also organic in a way. It helped. Mike Hash doesn't ever get enough credit for how he helped that team get created. You know, really with a new sport, any sport, especially unified, we had to find athletes and partners. And Mike and I talked when we were starting, you know, to just try and get this team together to even field the team. And before we even had a parent meeting, and he said, I think we're going to start with the Student Leadership Council to find some of our partners. And then from there, we had a coach, like a parent meeting, a call out meeting for some of our athletes. And there were just 2 athletes there and 2 sets of parents. And one of those athletes was Mitch. And so between Mike Hash kind of knowing the right group of kids to start with for partners, and then really we thought, well, this might be over. We don't have enough athletes to even field a team. And the next day, I think Mitch had recruited 6 or 7 athletes. I mean, it was unbelievable. So between Mike and Mitch and both of their visions, they made it really easy. Then practice was, hey, we're a first year team. We're all in this together. And a lot of us are doing this for the first time. We had great athletes, great partners as far as on the physical side, but none of us I mean, some had some track experience, but we were all in it together. And I think that's the culture that was created organically. And then once we saw it happening, we realized we're not touching this. We're not changing this. This is going to work. And everyone was holding each other accountable. And it really kind of, I had nothing to do with it besides the fact that I knew when it was working not to change it. And I think that's the key is everyone was taking this as seriously as possible. They wanted to win. We wanted to get better every day. And that's just the culture we fostered. And it really, because there were only 2 coaches for the whole team and we were at a big track field, you really have to let the kids be free to practice and be accountable, because you can only make it so many places. And I think that was the other big thing, is that I didn't babysit. You know, I was there and I made sure we were safe and doing what we needed to do. But, you know, we had a culture that can be created, but that really took it and ran with it. No pun intended.
So a couple follow-up questions there. You said that Mike Hash, who was the athletic director at the time, said he was going to go to the Student Leadership Council. You're talking about an athletic group, as I recall. It's
school athletic.
Yeah, what some schools might call a captain's council or a student advisory committee to the athletic director. So you had some really good kids who were out of season. I remember a couple of soccer kids who were out there, even though they were playing travel and playing year round, they still made time for that. But every time I saw what was going on, it was like if you're leading calisthenics or you're leading stretching, there was always an athlete and a partner out there together leading that. And that seemed to be something that was intentional on your part as well.
A quick follow-up on that. It was, I think I led calisthenics. I think I led the warm-ups one time at the beginning, and it was me, an athlete, and a partner, just so we could understand what we needed to do, what our structure was going to be. And then after that, we had an athlete and a partner every time leading it, or a couple athletes, a couple partners, and I'm on the sideline and I'm just there really trying to talk to kids, athletes and partners, both just walking around, asking how their day was, getting to know them a little bit, creating a culture where they could talk to me if they had a problem or an issue. But it really, as much, sometimes being the best leader for a program is by not really leading anything.
I understand.
And so that's really what anything that I could have an athlete or partner do, they were doing. I was not.
And I particularly agree with that. And I had many years working with high school kids. When you're dealing with high school kids, the job of the adult is, like you said, keep them safe, keep them online, but they've got to take accountabilities for what's going on. And I saw you do that masterfully. Mitch, let's turn over to you for a second. Here you were, a kid who's been all the way through sophomore year. You hadn't ever really been invited to be a part of anything other than Special Olympics away from school, but at school, you'd had no clubs, no sports, nothing. Suddenly, you've not only got unified track, but you're a captain. Remember what that felt like, and maybe the first time you were out there leading the entire group in stretching exercises or something like that? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I remember that immensely. As soon as I realized I was one of the captains and stuff, I remember talking. It was before we even went out to practice. I was telling everybody that we were winning sectionals right here, and everybody was telling me, "Mitch, what if we don't win it? Are you gonna be okay?" I'm like, "No, I know we're gonna win sectionals this year," because I was so confident in that relationships that we built. And, being out there and helping lead stretches was great, and it also allowed me to. It held me accountable, but it also helped them keep me accountable if I wasn't on top of everything and stuff.
And did you find that carrying over to like the classroom and other areas of your life?
Oh yeah, my whole life I had a student assistant or an aide or I don't know, para
Yeah, an
assistant.
aide. Sure.
Para assistant with me, and I had that all the way up to senior year, and senior year I did not have one, and I was building more confidence in my life, and I was giving more opportunities to find my strengths in different subjects and stuff, and learning that having lunch with my friends from track was the best. I mean, learning that we had the same goal and we were ready to achieve greatness.
Okay, so let's talk about that briefly, and it's got nothing to do with track other than it came out of track. But I've heard you in your speeches talk about your sophomore year when you'd walk down the hallway and you'd recognize all these athletes from sports, and you knew what their records were, and you know who they were, and you knew what their positions were, and they'd walk by you and they didn't even see you. You were like invisible. How did that change junior year when instead of being isolated, eating lunch alone or with the other special needs students, how did that change junior and senior year for you?
Junior and senior year were a blessing because it allowed them to see I was a lot more like them than different. And that's always been my goal in life, and it still is my message in life, that to show people that people with disabilities are more alike them than different, and allowed me to eat lunch with them more. And this isn't the athletes picking on me because I was different. It was them sitting with me because I was an athlete and I was a student athlete like them.
And you were a teammate. It's the same story as Jackie Robinson, when we broke the color barrier. Suddenly you weren't one of them, you're a teammate. And I've heard you say how some of those same guys who became your friends had really made fun of you earlier. And then after you became a teammate, nobody made fun of you, or they had to deal with them too. Life-changing, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Then Andrew, you made a huge step. You made a huge statement. You invited Mitch to come back and be part of your coaching staff. Talk about how you got that idea, what sort of challenges that presented, and just that whole concept of why'd you do it?
It didn't even, it kind of was just a reflex, you know, I didn't even think about it. It was, Mitch was, you know, a senior and he was about to move on, and I just didn't see any other option. There was no chance he was just not going to be around it all of a sudden. And we needed him. He created this leadership ability to, I think this term's used sometimes too much, but to bridge the gap. So Mitch was able to organically connect athletes and partners and show kind of the way to do it. Sometimes our partners would come in and they would, you know, they didn't mean to, but they would maybe talk in a baby voice, or they would try and do too much for our athletes and really try and be, you know, I call it like a parent at the track. And Mitch was able to kind of show like, hey, no, they can run this, or they can do this, and also just show the correct way to talk, either you know, to speak, and it's just, we needed him. I mean, that's the truth of it. It wasn't, I didn't think anything of it at the time. It just seemed like a no-brainer, and he'd been around it so long from the beginning and such a big part of it. We needed him on the staff. There were a couple roadblocks with him being the age he was, because there are some rules with the schools about how old a coach needs to be, or what. We were able to kind of work through it and structure it in a way that that worked. But
as I recall, you still had high expectations. He had to pass the test that the other
Yes.
coaches exact, and you, yeah.
No, it was not a charity. I mean, there was no charity here. He had to earn it. He had to be there every day. He was held accountable as a coach, like I was. It was not an easy thing to do, and you know, we also had to learn, because Mitch cares so much about unified sports. He would come to me a lot of practices saying, you know, hey coach, I'm kind of upset. I don't feel like this group's taking it, you know, as serious. And he was right. And he'd be ready to go kind of get on him. And I'd say, hey Mitch, you're the assistant. Here's what's going to happen. I'll go get on him. You go build him up afterwards. And so it gave a chance to learn, for him to learn how to coach and be a leader, not just a captain, but different coaching styles, and different people need different coaching, and it gave Mitch that chance. So
yeah, that's an important lesson to learn. And you know, whether you're coaching regular track or unified track, the same principles apply, I'm sure. Mitch, what did it mean to you to become an assistant coach on a team, the first in the state as far as I know?
Honestly, it was a wake-up call. If I remember correctly, I know that I had to take a lot of coaching classes to be qualified, but I remember the importance of it for me was I saw how much of an impact it had in my life, and I wanted them to see that. And I got to coach my little sister in track, and not a lot of people get to say that. And so, it was.
Yeah, but I can also remember you asking me a few times, how do I coach my sister? And that's hard. You know, some of us have coached our own children, you know, and it's hard when you're coaching a family member. So
Right.
You handled that well, I thought.
I also learned that sometimes, like Coach Skaggs said, sometimes you got to learn that people take coaching in different ways, and you got to learn how to be that voice for how they take that coaching. So it might be verbal coaching, it might be showing them how to do it in by actually doing it with them, which I've always enjoyed about coaching, is showing them how capable they are is by doing it with them and walking with them.
Right.
And sometimes also having them do it But I think the most rewarding moment in my coaching career, and I think this is Skaggs' as well, so I don't want to take it, so I'll let him say it. But the most rewarding moment in my coaching career for me was seeing my buddy Zach, who has CP like I do, walk the whole 100 meters or jog the whole 100 meters without his walker, which he usually has with him everywhere. And that was my favorite coaching moment, is seeing him achieve his goal of being able.
I was there that day and I cried because I don't think any of us had ever seen him without his walker.
No.
You know, he used it for everything. So to see him take the line for the 100 with his walker and then drop it off and go without it, wow, still get choked up. Well, look, we're approaching the end of our time. So Andrew, I'm just going to give you one last chance. You got a lot of new coaches in the audience right now. We're just getting started, going through those frustrations of trying to recruit a team and how to treat them. So what final advice do you have for them, particularly when it comes to how do you treat athletes and how do you make lifelong leaders out of them?
I think that's just great. Take it a day at a time first. I mean, we're all in uncharted. I mean, it's new. Even though it's been around now for years, it's new, and every practice is going to be different. I think the best way to treat athletes and partners is the same. You know, we take care of them, we make sure we know what their needs are, but then we treat them the same and we hold them accountable. We can't force it. If an athlete is not on that day, you know, don't spend their whole practice trying to get them to do what you want them to do. Give them the option, and then, you know, go start coaching. Spend that time, and they'll come around. I mean, it's frustration sometimes, but it's the best, and enjoy it. There's not a day that I don't miss it. I have all my unified stuff still in my office here. No matter how bad of a mood I was in before I got to practice or a game, it was changed immediately. So enjoy it, embrace it, and be yourself. Before I coached basketball, and as a basketball coach, I thought I needed to be all the basketball coaches I had growing up. I don't have that personality. I'm not a tough guy. And I think my athletes those first 2 years of coaching basketball saw right through it. And when I started coaching unified track and I was myself, I think that changed everything. I mean, just be who you are, and that kind of shows the kids it's okay to be who they are too.
Awesome. What about you, Mitch? What's your final words to these coaches out here, coming from both a former athlete and a former coach?
Know that we are capable, and don't be afraid to show how capable they are. And if I have one thing, is athletes can achieve the big goals. It might take them longer, or it might be a little harder for them, but they can achieve those.
Well, we miss you both. Andrew, I know you've gone on to a different career and married, have a family now. But I'm guessing that someday when those family gets a little bit older, you'll be back, because you just seem to be passionate about it. And Mitch, I know that after you're through with college, you'll plan to be back as well. Well, I want to thank you both for being part of this. This is a great opportunity. We're very excited about the new Coaches Association, and really glad you guys took the time to be with us today. And one final thank you to you. And folks, we're going to turn it back over to the MC at this time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no questions, thank you everyone for attending today. And I hope you all have a great season.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you. It was great.